Okay, great. So we'll get started with this presentation, Teaching Pathways at SF State. And so I'll introduce myself first. I am Molly McManus, and I'm a professor in the Department of Child and Adolescent Development at San Francisco State. And so I teach classes, I do research, but a big part of my job is also advising. So I talk to, students once they're in the program to like help choose classes or get ready to apply to credential programs to become a teacher. And I also often work with students who are in community college and transferring in. So in this context, I'm kind of here as an advisor to help make sure you all feel super clear on what you need to do.
I'm Savannah Haley. I'm the CAD Department Administrative Analyst. So I focus a lot on outreach and recruitment for our programs. I'm also a child development graduate. I graduated last spring. And now I'm in the multiple subject credential program, plus the master's in curriculum and instruction at SF State in our Graduate College of Education. So I'm still a student, but also working for the department that I graduated from.
So today, kind of overview of what we're going to try to cover. We're just going to introduce you to the Child and Adolescent Development Department, kind of what we're about. We're going to talk about the different degrees you can get within that department, and we'll also describe what those are and what they are designed to prepare you for. And then we're going to go over, there's a lot of different pathways to teaching. I feel like that's kind of a theme of this conference. But even within San Francisco State and within the Child and Adolescent Development Department, there's lots of different pathways, and there's more than one pathway to become one type of teacher. So we're going to tell you about some of the main ones that a lot of our students do. We'll talk for a minute about like how do you apply to San Francisco State, and then we're hoping to leave a good amount of time for questions at the end. And we're honestly happy to get into specifics with like the small-ish number of people in this. We can talk about like, your specific situation and what might make sense. So we're really happy to do that. Okay, so the Child and Adolescent Development Department at San Francisco State, one of like the most important characterizing features for me is that it's a very applied program. So we talk a lot about the science of development, you know, theories and things like that, but we focus on application. So, what does all this mean for your practice with kids? And in a lot of your cases, your teaching. How does this all apply to like what it means to be a teacher and be in the field? And then we also have like a really strong focus across our courses in social justice, issues of equity, um, thinking about like the broad diversity of children and families that we work with, and how do we design our practice to include everybody and honor everyone's like cultural backgrounds. So those are some of the things we try really hard to do in our curriculum and our teaching. And I think we're really good at it. I think students leave with like really discrete and concrete strategies for supporting children and families. And so we're really proud of that. So in the Child and Adolescent Development Department, we have two majors, and one of those majors has three concentrations. So the biggest major is your major in child and adolescent development. Within that major, you can concentrate in early care and education, elementary education teaching pre-credential, or community health and social services. And we're going to talk about all those in depth. We have a new major called child development pre-K through third grade. And this major is really specifically prepares students who want to get the new pre-K through third grade teaching credential, which we'll talk about more. And there's been a ton of content on that in this conference. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you about all four of these different concentrations and majors in the CAD department. So the first one, early care and education. This is for people who are interested in working primarily with young children, infants, toddlers, preschoolers, and their families. The careers that are kind of associated with this concentration are if you want to be an infant toddler teacher, a preschool teacher, a birth through kindergarten special education teacher, or like the director of an early childhood center, or like a home daycare provider. So the classes you take in this prepare you for those types of professions. The classes you take are also aligned with the California Child Development Permit, which is the preschool teaching permit. And they also set you up to go into the early childhood special education credential program at San Francisco State. And we'll talk more about that in a bit. The next concentration is elementary education teaching pre-credential. This is for students who want to work in an elementary school, either as a classroom teacher or a special education teacher. Both of those jobs require a credential, a teaching credential that you get either during or after your bachelor's degree. But this concentration sets you up to go into those programs. So if you're interested in being a kindergarten through sixth grade teacher, a bilingual elementary school teacher, a kindergarten through 12th grade special education teacher, or even eventually becoming a principal of a school or a superintendent, this is a great concentration for you. And one really cool and newer thing about this concentration is that it fulfills the subject matter requirements for a credential program, which translates to you don't have to take a long exam that is actually pretty hard. So if you do this concentration, you don't have to take that exam. Oh, and let me just pause to make Sarah co-host. Okay, thank you, Sarah. Hi, good to see you. Um, okay, the next concentration, community health and social services. This concentration prepares students who are interested in working with children and families outside of a school context. So, community health or social service settings. There are lots and lots of jobs that this prepares you to do, things like youth work, out of school time, like after school programs, summer programs, camps, child life specialists, social work, counseling, nursing, occupational therapists. So lots of things. There's more on that list. Students who are in this concentration typically aren't interested in becoming teachers. Um, but this is a concentration from which you can become a teacher. So it doesn't cut off that teaching pathway, but it does make it a little less direct. But there are reasons that some students are interested in doing both, and this can be a really good fit, but it's less typical for our students who want to be teachers. And then lastly, our new major, child development pre-K to third grade. This major is recommended for students who plan to enroll in this new credential created by the state of California that has the very long name, California Pre-K to third grade, Early Childhood Education, Specialist Instruction Credential. So that is a new credential, and it trains and certifies teachers to teach pre-K or TK through third grade. So you still teach on an elementary school campus, but you really have a background in early childhood development, which the state and I think is really important for teaching children, from the age of 4 to 8 or 4 to 9. So we're really excited about this credential. And it can be really flexible, something you can still teach preschool. So preschool, transitional kindergarten, kindergarten through third grade at an elementary school, or birth through kindergarten special education. So we're going to talk about what these pathways look like. But this one's new for us, and I think it's a great fit for a lot of what our students want to do. So we're going to pause here and we just have all the concentrations listed out again. And we'd like everyone to do your best to type in the chat which of these feels like the right fit for your career goal. Um, so early care and education, elementary education, community health and social services, or the child development pre-K to third grade. Go ahead and write in the chat, um, if possible. And that'll just give Savannah and I uh, a little guidance on where to spend more time. Okay, thank you, Jaden. Oh, okay. Jasmine says early care and education or pre-K to three. And that's a really common kind of like toggle. Um, we're going to emphasize this a couple more times in the presentation, but I just want to say from the top, once you're at San Francisco State and you're in the CAD department, moving between these majors and concentrations is really easy. Students do it all the time. Sometimes goals change, and it's a really easy thing to do. So don't feel too much pressure to make the right decision when you transfer in. Okay, yeah. And then another between elementary pre-credential and the new child development. Um, actually, Savannah was in a similar situation, so she will speak to that from personal experience. But we have a pathway for you, Tiffany. Um, Okay. So essentially, it seems like all three of the sort of teaching focused ones. Feel free to continue writing in the chat if you haven't gotten to yet, but we'll let Savannah kind of talk more about the pathways and what this looks like in practice and moving through and across universities.
Okay. Um, so I want to start with just kind of an overview of teaching pathways with CAD degrees. Starting in high school, you have a high school diploma or a GED. I think most of us here are community college transfer students. You can also come in being a freshman at SF State. If you come in as a community college transfer student, these four associate degrees are the best to transfer into a bachelor's degree in child development, but you don't have to have these. You can transfer in with anything. These are just a more like streamlined pathway. So if possible, these would be great to transfer into the bachelor's degree, but if not, it's no big deal. Then you would get a bachelor's degree in child and adolescent development. You'd pick a concentration like we talked about on the other slides. After that, when you graduate, you can get your child development permit, which means you'll become a preschool teacher. Or you can get a credential, and and one of these credentials, you could teach between preschool, multiple subject, early childhood SPED, and then K to 12 SPED. After you obtain your credential or your permit, you'd be a teacher. Okay, so starting with early childhood, if you're mostly interested in early childhood, I know we had a few people that were. Here's a few pathways. The first one being you get a bachelor's degree in early care and education, and that can translate into you getting a child development permit after, and then you would be a birth through preschool teacher. You could also do the bachelor's degree in child development pre-K to third grade, get a permit, and become a birth through preschool teacher as well. Over here, we have a pathway listed for if you're interested in potentially going up into elementary education. You could do a bachelor's degree in child development pre-K to third grade, that new major, and then get a pre-K to three credential, and then become a preschool through third grade teacher. So you can teach in the early childhood settings, but you can also teach transitional kindergarten, and then first through third grade in elementary schools. At SF State, this pre-K to third credential is coming soon. We're hoping by fall 2025 it will be a program, but it is in the works at SF State. So, some exciting opportunities in early childhood. We have a program starting that combines a bachelor's degree with a credential in 4 years. So, it would be the child development pre-K to third grade bachelor's degree, plus a pre-K to third grade credential. And instead of doing them two separately, so 4 years for the BA and 4 years or a year and a half for the credential, you combine it and get both in just 4 years. This would give you
And
the ability to teach
I
an EC.
want to add, Savannah, we could have put this on the slide, but if you're transferring in, it's 2 years, right? Like,
Yes, we
yeah,
should put that on the side. It is a 2 year program if you're transferring from a community college. So
yeah.
either way, it's like in the amount of time that you would take to get your bachelor's degree, you can also get a credential. We also have a minor in early childhood education. This is mostly listed here because if you get a major in like anything else other than the early care and the early care concentration, you can add this minor on and still get 24 early childhood education units. So we have an option if you're like you don't want to commit to the early care pathway, but you're interested in potentially having that option that would be a minor that you could add on to still get those units. A lot of people also have enough units from community colleges. They can transfer in those 24 units also. And this would be best if you wanted to get a permit or eventually apply to the pre-K to third grade credential. And finally, we have the SF State Scholars. This is a direct pathway to becoming an early childhood special education teacher. I'm going to talk about it more in the coming slides and it will make a little bit more sense. But for those of you that were interested in SPED, you'll want to keep your eyes out for this slide when I get to it. Okay, so pathways to teaching in elementary school. The first one is the BA in Child Development pre-K to third grade. Then you would get the pre-K to third grade credential that is going to be launched soon. And then you'd be able to teach preschool through third grade. So this is really focused for people who love the younger age group and don't necessarily want to teach fourth and fifth grade, but still want the option to be in an elementary school setting. And then we also have the BA in Child and Adolescent Development, Elementary Teaching Pre-Credential, which then translates to getting a multiple subject teaching credential and becoming a K through sixth grade teacher. This is the pathway that I did. But over here, while I completed my BA, I added the minor in ECE. So I still have 24 units in early childhood education, and I'm eligible to teach transitional kindergarten. I didn't want to go specifically into preschool, but I did want the option to teach TK since it's something that's the whole state is implementing. So if that sounds like you can always add on this minor or use your community college ECE credits to get 24 units in ECE. One thing that's really great about it is if you do add the minor, a lot of the CAD courses that you're already taking can double count for your minor. So I added it on and it was like no big deal. I think it was only a few extra classes. If you do this pathway, also, you won't need to take the CSET exam for admission into credential programs. I did that. It was very nice. A lot of people in my program are struggling because they're trying to pass the CSET, but if you do this pathway, then you won't have to worry about it. And some exciting opportunities. So that same integrated teacher education program, I listed it again because you're able to teach up to third grade. So you do get to be an elementary school teacher. You just get to stick in the younger grades instead of going up into fourth and fifth. So again, that's the 4 year program where you get a bachelor's in child development pre-K to third grade and a pre-K to three credential all in those 4 years. I added the minor here as well because, as I said, if you add that on, then you'll have your ECE units. Even if you're interested in staying in elementary school but teaching TK, it's a great program. And then I ended with just a little bit on the Graduate College of Education credential programs that I'm currently in those programs, so there's a bunch of different credentials that you can get, but you can also add bilingual authorizations. So if you're a bilingual student, you can add these authorizations and then potentially get stipends in districts that you work for being able to speak a second language. You can also add an integrated master's in curriculum and instruction. I'm doing that program right now. So I'm getting a credential, my multiple subject credential, so I can teach elementary school, but I'm also getting a master's in curriculum instruction. And then it's a combined program. And if you do it, you take less units because your credential units can double count as some master's units. It's a cool program. And lastly, For those of you that are interested in SPED, here's our SPED pathways. So if you get a BA in Child Development, Early Care, and Education, and then get your early childhood special education credential, you can become a birth through kindergarten SPED teacher. This pathway is mostly for people who want to focus between like kindergarten and 12th grade. This one's for people who are really focused on the early childhood SPED. If you do the second one, you would do a bachelor's in CAD, elementary teaching pre-credential. You could pick one of these credentials, so the mild to moderate support needs credential, the extensive support needs credential, or the visual impairment credential, and then be a SPED teacher in kindergarten through 12th grade. Again, if you use this pathway or this bachelor's degree, you wouldn't need to take the CSAT exam for admission into these three credential programs. So here is that slide that I said was coming up about SF State scholars. This is for people who want to blend their CAD degree with degrees in SPED so that you can become special education teachers. So they're blended undergraduate and graduate degree programs. You can save at least one semester in time and tuition by doing this blended program. And you can take up to 15 graduate units at the undergraduate rate, which is a really nice perk. You can apply for the SF State Scholars Program after you've been accepted to SF State. So what we would recommend is that you apply in the BA CAD Early Care and Education or the Elementary Teaching Pre-Credential, the two pathways to SPED, um, then speak with an advisor and then apply to SF State Scholars. So you don't need to worry about this before you get admitted into SF State. It's something that we would walk you through, and your advisors could help you figure out how to apply and get into the program. I have a link and the QR code for more information about this program, but you can look at this little image here and see that you'd be working on your bachelor's degree for community college transfers, it would be your junior and senior year. And then your master's would start in your senior year, and there would be a little bit of time after you graduate with your bachelor's degree that you'd have to finish up that master's. But you can double count 12 of your graduate units and take some graduate units at the undergraduate rate. So that's kind of what that pathway looks like. And then here are the SF State Scholar pathways. So if you wanted to become a birth through kindergarten SPED teacher, you would get your BA in Child Development, Early Care and Education, plus a master's in special education, plus a credential in early childhood special education. And all of those things would make you eligible to be a birth through kindergarten SPED teacher, and you would do them all together at once. It's not like separate programs, you're doing it all in one. And then to be a kindergarten through 12th grade SPED teacher, you would do the elementary education teaching pre-credential plus the master's in special education. And then you would add the one of these three credentials, whichever one you're interested in. And then you'd be a kindergarten through 12th grade SPED teacher. So just to end with a little bit about applying, here are some links. So here's the undergraduate. Oh, weird.
Oh,
Do not.
I'm sorry. Hold on. I was copy pasting and I did that.
Wow. No worries. Um, so I have a link to the undergraduate admissions website for more current and detailed information about applying to SF State on the Cal State Apply. When you're applying to SF State, you would select one of the four child and adolescent development majors as your primary major. But again, if you decide to switch it, you can do that super easily. I did that. I had to switch out of a previous major we had into the elementary teaching pre-credential. It's no big deal. It's super easy. You just meet with an advisor and they'll walk you through it. Here's a link for like orientation, living on campus, financial aid, just like new student information. And when I was applying, I was super interested in the credential programs that were offered at SF State. So I linked those here. You would complete them after your bachelor's degree, but I still wanted to know what was offered. So I linked the SPED credentials at the top and then the Graduate College of Education credentials at the bottom.
Okay, and I'm just copying these into the chat. And
Perfect.
for some reason, turning my camera off while I do it.
Sounds good. Thank you. So just on this last final slide, we are going to open up for questions. But I wanted to mention that we have drop-in advising via Zoom for this whole semester. We do it every semester, Tuesdays from 12 to 1, Wednesdays from 5 to 6 this semester. So in December they end, but every Tuesday and Wednesday until then, you can drop in. If you scan the QR code, it will take you to our advising webpage. And literally, there's a Zoom link on that webpage. You just have to click it. It'll take you straight into advising. No appointments needed. Just come on in for any questions. That's actually how I transferred into SF State. Like I clicked the link and talked to somebody, and they made it super easy for me to transfer in. And then we also have a link for our other CAD information sessions. It's basically the same information that we went over here. But if you're interested or have questions or available, we have them on, for 2 dates in November. And then here's some contact information. Feel free to reach out.